I spent a lot of my time as kind of a hands-on keyboard engineer. When I first started, I got in the industry. Still don't have a college degree or certificates, and I kind of advocate for that. I don't tell people not to go to school, but I do show people a way to get into the industry without needing school.
The communication of technical solutions and capabilities to different stakeholders. And so you put all of that together, and then you become kind of this strategic, almost like strategic capability or knowledge hub in yourself, right?
I got in by kind of the luck of the draw. I was taking whatever contract roles I could at the time. And one of the temp agencies that, the staffing agencies I used, found this little company called TrustWave, not so little anymore. I was one of their first 3 employees out here in the States, in Colorado.
The reality is that, unfortunately, even up to today, while we have many more educational opportunities available specifically for cybersecurity and information security, I still don't think it's up to the level from an educational institute perspective to help you to actually do the job.
Perseverance and curiosity is really the number one trait to have in this industry. There's going to be so many times where you're presented with something that you're not familiar with, that you've never seen before, but the willingness to dig through and get the answers is so important.
I struggle to find the answer to the question as to why people are looking for jobs but not posting stuff on LinkedIn or connecting with people on LinkedIn. I really struggle with that, because even along my journey, it's the exact same answer. It is people know people, and especially in security, people know people globally, right?
The fact that you were willing to do this, so many people just kind of give up and they get intimidated, and you gave it a good shot and tried.
That sounds like fun. I would want to do Network and Security Plus with board games. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Right? Who wouldn't?
Hey everyone, today I'm so excited to be joined by Amber. Now, Amber is an absolute cybersecurity powerhouse. She is passionate about cybersecurity, but she's truly an advocate for many different things in tech as a whole and tech education. So Amber is the founder of Teach Kids Tech, which is a foundation and initiative that's dedicated to providing kids in underserved communities with access to technical education. Amber also has over 15 years of industry experience. This is experience in cybersecurity. She's a SANS Award winner, best-selling author, and she has had some amazing initiatives. She was the co-founder of Lift Women in Security. She also co-hosts a podcast called the Cyber Queens Podcast. This is Cybersecurity Uncomplicated with Cyber Queen, where we break barriers one chat at a time. No one has the exact roadmap, but together we're challenging stereotypes. We'll show you that cybersecurity is for everyone. We're bold, smart, and unapologetically diverse. So, Amber, I'm so happy to have you here. Thank you for joining us and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. What an intro. I appreciate that. It's good to be here. I'm excited.
Of course, I'm so happy to chat with you. I mean, we've been connected for a while, and I love your energy, love your vibes. So I just want to know, maybe first and foremost, I know I've given you kind of the long, maybe professional intro, but maybe on a more personal side, can you let us know a little bit about yourself? Who is Amber?
Oh, that's somewhat of a loaded question. I would say probably, and I don't love this term, but a jack of all trades. I do probably too much. My day job is, I work at Alkira as a principal solutions architect. I've been doing that a few months now. It's been great. I spent most of my career on the practitioner side in cyber. And so it kind of, got me the hands-on experience that actually trickled into my personal life. So a lot of what I do in my personal life is still revolving around the industry. And I actually really wouldn't have it any other way. So I am a mom to a 12-year-old son, and he's great, and kind of the inspiration for all the things that I've done thus far. And I'm excited to be here, and it's going to be a good one. Good time.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So now I want to start right off, because you mentioned the term that for most of your career, you've been a practitioner, right? So for everyone watching or listening, what does that mean? Tell us a little bit about your journey and the practitioner specifically. What does it mean?
I would say, so I spent a lot of my time as kind of a hands-on keyboard engineer when I first started. When I first started, I got in the industry. Still don't have a college degree or certificates, and I kind of advocate for that, right? I don't tell people not to go to school, but I do show people a way to get into the industry without needing school, because I think that's a huge barrier for a lot of folks. And it's really, it's hampering our ability to really succeed in this industry. So I got in by kind of the luck of the draw. I was taking whatever contract roles I could at the time. And one of the temp agencies that, the staffing agencies I used, found this little company called TrustWave, not so little anymore. I was one of their first 3 employees out here in the States, in Colorado. So
Wow.
yeah, it was great. I was a compliance analyst. And at the time I had no idea what that meant. I was just like, all right, what do I do? It was PCI compliance. So I was helping customers kind of navigate, the questionnaires and everything else. And on the other side of the wall from me was the SOC, or the Security Operations Center. And I had made some friends over there and just got to know about what they did. And I was like, that sounds way more interesting than what I'm doing. So I gravitated towards that and just kind of kept taking roles as needed and, things that would get me more experience and get my foot in the door. And here I am 15 years later. So trying to help other people do the same thing.
That's incredible. And it's such a phenomenal and actually validating story, because I say the same, right? With so many years of being in the industry, the reality is that unfortunately, like even up to today, while we have many more educational opportunities available specifically for cybersecurity and information security, I still don't think it's up to the level from an educational institute perspective to help you to actually do the job, right? And so I think that's the misalignment where people don't understand. It's not about advocating for not getting a degree or not getting an education. Like if you want that, do you, but just in terms of getting a cybersecurity job, it is about that kind of doing whatever you can, taking the roles that you can, getting the exposure that you need, and then just going for that one opportunity that opens the door for basically many other things for many, many, many years in security. But TrustWave, that's such a big deal, because it's there's such
at
a
the time it wasn't.
Now.
I was like, ew, what is this company? I was like, whatever, it's a paycheck, let's go do it. And I actually discovered my love of tech in that job. I was there for 3 years, so I'm glad I did it. And that's kind of like the thing. Sometimes if you're, I was a single mom that just took on any job I really could, and that was the one that landed me in the tech space. And I was like, all right, let's just make this work, because this seems to be like a really cool career path. And my parents are both in IT. They've been doing that their whole careers. And my dad, when I took that job, was like, take the job. You are going to be a unicorn if you stay in this job, because there aren't a lot of women here. You're going to bring a whole new perspective. And I, at the time I was like, ooh, I get to be like a unicorn. That's so great. And now I'm like, okay, well, now I understand that. And I use my platform for, good and training and awareness, and try to do that so everybody else can learn too.
Yeah, I love that. And so true. Dads really know. They know this whole unicorn situation. Yeah. I had a mentor early in my career that were like, you're a unicorn. I was like, thanks. So it definitely is a coin term there, like especially when you started back then. But so now I want to know, then within TrustWave, you moved over to the SOC team. So what was that like? And how did you find your experience in learning and gaining skills to work there?
Yeah, so I actually didn't go to the SOC at TrustWave. I left TrustWave and went to a smaller MSSP called IntelliSecure. Okay. And that's kind of where I got my start as a security analyst. And that was, I always recommend this to anybody who's looking to get into the industry, to get into an MSSP if you can, because you're going to get experience, like hands-on experience to every security tool. You're going to be exposed to multiple different types of clients, multiple industry verticals. You're going to have, it's going to be a fire drill, dumpster fire every single day. But I think it's the quickest way to ramp up and get the experience that you'll be able to take with you for your career. So for me, I ended up moving from that SOC to another SOC, and I became a SOC manager, and worked really closely with the C-suite and leadership team, because there was a lot of turnover. And it's funny because I started as a security analyst there, and I remember the first day that I was told, like, hey, you're being promoted to the SOC manager. I was like, oh, really? Like I wasn't even so, I was like, so I remember walking back into the SOC and they had announced this, and it was so weird because all of my peers now have to see me as like this, their boss essentially. So it was kind of, for me, it was I don't know. But I did do some things that really none of the leadership had done before that. I had an initiative to get everybody there, either certified with Network Plus or Security Plus. So I made board games and we played every Friday for about an hour in the SOC. Nobody had to leave their stations. It was just kind of like a board game where you ask questions that were in the Security Plus or Network Plus study guides. And my goal was to get everybody certified. And I had everybody except for 2 people out of the whole SOC that actually ended up getting certified. So that was great. It was definitely a rewarding career, part of my career, I guess I should say.
Yeah,
so,
David, that sounds awesome. Like fun. I would want to do Network and Security Plus with board games. That sounds like a lot of fun.
Right? Who wouldn't?
So, I mean, just on that topic then, before we move a little bit ahead, so as a SOC manager, what would have been some of the core characteristics and personality traits and skills that you would be looking for when you hire a new SOC analyst?
Oh man, I think curiosity. I looked a lot for, that's the thing that I brought to the table when I was a security analyst, right? You could tell in my interviews, I felt like such an imposter. And the managers that gave me a chance, they all told me the same thing. And it was, you have the curiosity and the willingness to try. Like I was presented with one of my interviews. It was crazy. It was like 3 pages of like shell script. And they gave me a highlighter and they're like, here, you have like 5 minutes, highlight everything that matters and we'll come and see if you were right. I'm like, what? Like I was like, all right, I guess I'll try my best. Right. And I felt like I was going to get this wholly wrong. And they looked at it and they're like, the fact that you were willing to do this, so many people just kind of give up and they get like intimidated and you gave it a good shot and try. Like that's what we need from security analysts, because there's going to be so many times where you're presented with something that you're not familiar with, that you've never seen before, but the willingness to dig through and get the answers is so important. So I think perseverance and curiosity is really like the number one trait to have in this industry, regardless of which role you're in, especially because the nature of this industry is always changing. So, wanting to learn and wanting to understand things from a different perspective, that's one of the biggest things for me. And I always tried to find people who didn't come from traditional backgrounds, because I think that there's this variety that you get of experience when you do that. So I would try to find people who had not been in security. Maybe they were in the finance side, maybe healthcare. So they knew what to look for, because a lot of the clients, right, are going to be that, like finance, healthcare, other things like that. So it really played out really well. And I'm very lucky to have worked with the team that I did. They were amazing.
Yeah, that sounds really good. And I mean, you said something so important there, is that you always try to look for someone that comes from a different background or that is a little bit different, because I find that in a lot of more technical teams, like maybe a SOC capability or engineering team capability, the hiring manager might be looking for the same set of skills, the same type of person. And so therefore you don't get that variety or diversity when it comes to solving a problem, right? So I think that's one of the bigger challenges as well, is the whole problem solving aspect when you have no idea what the problem is, because that's the thing in security, like it's not really like that. All problems 100%. Are so repeatable, right? They're all 100%. New every time. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree with you more on that.
And so from the SOC manager, where did we go then?
Oh man, I think I've done just about everything. I went to the pre-sales side. So I went to vendors or OEMs. So like, the Palo Altos, basically all of the like firewall vendors or things like that. So I spent some time mostly in the DLP side. So data loss prevention, which was great. I worked at ForcePoint and Menlo and a couple others. And so I really enjoyed that. I became a sales engineer, which at the time when they called me, again, it was a staffing agency. And I was like, what's a sales engineer? That's like super contradictory. And, again, being opportunistic, I was like, all right, you know what? I'm not loving the job I'm at. Like, let's take a leap of faith. And it's honestly been my favorite job I've ever had. That's for sure. I'm next to SOC manager. I like being in the leadership side because I like helping others succeed. But I think from an actual day-to-day workload, that's something that I like doing, because I like being able to test the limits of different tech and see what works and what doesn't. And I'm pretty competitive. So I like calling other people out on their stuff when they say their product does something, but it doesn't. So it's nice to be able to prove that too. But it's, it's been fun. And then now on the side, also run that nonprofit Teach Kids Tech. So that's been awesome as well, and just keeps me busy.
Amazing. So for those listening and watching, what is a sales engineer? What is the role?
Yeah, so you're essentially there to get a technical win when selling a product. So let's say a customer wants to buy a firewall and they're looking at, 5 different vendors and companies that sell them, right? It's your job to kind of get in and showcase, use cases or examples of problems that you've solved with your solution. And you do that through, we call them demos or demonstrations of the product. And then we'll go through and do like a proof of concept or a POC where we actually, the customers can kind of get in there, play around with the tool. It's usually about a week to a month long. They kind of get their hands on the product to see if it works for them. And you kind of prove with them, right? Here's how the product will solve all of your issues. And it's awesome. So we work with, it's usually an account executive, so sales rep. So I would always support them and just kind of be there to make the technical win happen.
Somewhere along in my journey as well, I was what we called a pre-sales architect, right? So essentially that is also a sales engineer, right? Yeah. It's kind of the same type of role. But I was always challenged with the point that if you're a sales engineer, you're essentially just a salesperson. So what would you say to that?
Yeah, I would say not really, because I've done both roles, right? So now I've done, it's funny because when you get into that side and you see, like, you get paid substantially different, right? So going from a practitioner where I was a security engineer, security analyst, and moving on to the pre-sales engineer, I realized like my compensation went up, my work-life balance was better because I wasn't doing, overnight shifts or having to be, on the clock at all times, but also the commission structure. So I remember seeing how much I was making versus my sales reps. And I was like, I'm basically the one winning these deals. So I remember I had moved over to that side for a while and I was like, okay, now I have, so much more respect for salespeople now that I've been one, because it's so much more work that you don't see, right? Like we kind of, massage the deal and make sure it gets to the finish line once it's there, but getting that deal in is solely the difference between a sales rep and a sales engineer. And there's times where as a sales engineer, you'll have your own connections in your own network to pull from and you'll bring in deals too, but mostly it's on the sales reps. So there's so many different sides to engineering. And that's what I love about having tried all of them is now I can speak to each of them. So when I'm telling people and they're looking to me for guidance on their career path, I can say, well, here, are you this kind of person? Do you like doing these kinds of things? Great. Here's options. Or if you don't like those, maybe steer clear and go to these options. And so that's always been nice to be able to offer that.
Yeah. And I think I so resonate with you when you talk about the work-life balance contrast, right? Because now you've mentioned 3 distinct places and career scenarios where you could go into, which I've been in all 3 of them. So as well, so I've been in MSSP and then in vendor and then in customer environment as well, which is where I am right now. But the difference really is distinct. I mean, I think in customer environment, the burden is on you, right? The burden of kind of the security and you have the security burden everywhere. But when you're a customer, like it's your environment to secure versus when you're MSSP, you just work a lot. You work a lot on a lot of different things and you learn a lot and it's kind of a rapid fire. But vendor is very specific, right? Vendor is enjoyable. Yeah. It's like you learn a lot, you still work a lot, but it's a different place to be.
Totally is. And I've also been on the reseller side as well. So it's, I've done MSSP, which is not the same as a reseller. MSSP is more of a managed service. So you're kind of managing the tools that you're purchasing and that way you can outsource it to somebody else. But the reseller side is more or less just kind of, getting customers in contact with those vendors and kind of being the liaison between the two.
Now we talk about sales engineering and solutions architecture. Okay. Is this the same? Is it a sales solutions architect role? Can you explain a little bit about the differences and that transition in your journey?
Yeah, so I think my experience in the SOC actually helped me be a better architect. I would say the difference between a sales engineer and a solutions architect is an architect is going to have to know more about general infrastructure and architecture. So you'll know, just enough about, it's not necessarily about the vendors, but more about the tools and what they're actually solving for. So you understand how certain things work together, right? So the differences between a firewall and a router and you know what I mean? And then you have, web application firewalls and how those come into play. So you really understand, you're kind of creating and building an entire I guess, architecture or infrastructure solution for a customer. And they're looking to you for that guidance, right? Because far too often they don't have the resources to be able to, or the finances to be able to supply resources to come in and to be a master of all, right? And I would say that that's closer to that. And my jobs as a sales engineer were more catered specifically to one like type of solution and how it works, and getting that to, do a lot of, what is the word I'm looking for? Doing a lot of like awareness and training and enablement. Whereas solutions architecture is more like, okay, let me come in and help you strategize and do all of this. So I would say for me, that's the difference that I found. I'm sure there's a million different answers out there that will be a little bit, tweaked from mine. But yeah, that's just what I found in my career.
Yeah, but I mean, your answer is brilliant. It's to the point because it really is kind of the solution across the stack, right? It is stepping out of it's utilizing your technical background and skills that you have, because I don't think you can be a good solutions architect without having that solid technical foundation. And then taking all of the engineering experience that you have and like the sales engineer, I find it really helps you with the communication of technical solutions and capabilities to different stakeholders. And so you put all of that together, and then you become kind of this almost like strategic capability or knowledge hub in yourself, right? Yeah. And you can now solution things across the stack. And I mean, I do find it so difficult to explain because I mean, I'm a cloud security architect, right? Architect solutions in the cloud. And so I find it so difficult when people ask, like, what exactly is it? Because it's so many things, but it really is that strategic aspect that ties together the architecture of so many different components. And you have to know a lot about a lot of things to be an architect, essentially.
You totally do. And that's why I would say for anybody who's looking to get into that side, to go to an MSP or an MSSP, because it's going to be the way that you get your hands on all of that and get, real world experience the fastest, I think, versus kind of hopping from job to job and doing different roles. I would say that's my path. But again, I'm sure your path might have been different. So that's what I love about this industry is everybody can come in from a completely unique background and still succeed in the same ways. And so that's been really great to see that.
Yeah. And so what would you say to people that are saying that, you know what, both of you sitting there and saying this now, you've been in the industry for years, and right now it's really impossible to get into this industry. What would you say?
I would say networking. So when I first started making TikToks, I would do this whole thing and I'm like, here's how to get into cyber. And it would be like, study these things or get to know these things. But really, I hammered on the fact that it was networking, because without my network of people that I knew, and by the way, when I started in this industry, I had like 16 LinkedIn connections, right? We're at like 26,000 now, but let's be real on where we came from. So I think most of my, like 80% of my career, I did not have the network that I have today, but I did have very close folks that I knew from each job, and I made sure not to burn those bridges. And then those folks would introduce me to others, and then I would get, invited to industry events. And I think that all of those places are so good, because even if you have an amazing, resume and an amazing sheet of paper that says how great you are, that's not how people are getting jobs these days. They're getting jobs through, referrals and word of mouth, their network. So I would say prioritize the network over every single other thing, like every single thing else. Like your network will matter more than a degree, more than certificates, depending on the job you're doing, but it will absolutely matter more than anything else. I think I've seen so many every single opportunity I've ever been given was only because of my network. So, and that was, especially for somebody who didn't have a degree, right? Where everybody else did and all these people were applying, but it was like, hey, I actually know this person. I can tell you she's great. She's a quick learner. She'll come on site and she'll actually want to, roll up her sleeves and get the job done, even if it is, grunt work. And, it's, your network can go a long way. So I think taking time, and we see more of that now, thank goodness, through social media, but also a lot of these meetup groups are good to be a part of too. So I would say to anybody who's looking to get into the industry or is struggling, make sure you're really, really building that network.
Yeah. Yeah. I really, I struggle to find the answer to the question as to why people are looking for jobs but not posting stuff on LinkedIn or connecting with people on LinkedIn. I really struggle with that, because even along my journey, it's the exact same answer. It is people know people, and especially in security, people know people globally, right? Like, I mean, people get into contact with people globally. And so, if someone is talking about you here, there, it's a big deal. I mean, I moved from South Africa to Denmark through my network, essentially. And that's how far reaching opportunities can be, through your network. So I think it's been, for the last few roles, even I didn't apply. It was just reached out through my network, through someone who knew me, and was like, hey, would you be interested? So I completely agree with you. And I think right now people need to be so aware that you cannot not exist as a brand if you really want to like break into the industry in an unusual or in an unauthorized way. Let's put it that way, right? Because there is now this where people are trying to craft this ideal path for people, which, hey, it's fine. But if you are trying to be a unicorn like these days, then you have to be different. You have to kind of set yourself apart somehow.
100%. 100%. I love that.
Yeah. So now I want to talk about your additional initiative here, which is Teach Kids Tech. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it's a 501c3 nonprofit based in Colorado, so in the United States. And we are dedicated to providing children living in underserved communities with access to the world of technology. So we do workshops. We do we're working this year a lot on building more alliances and partnerships with other companies to offer, for example, I'll give you an example. Arduino is a company that we're working with very closely because of all the kits and stuff that they make, right? So instead of reinventing the wheel, because my ADHD brain will go all day long if you let it. So I'm like, okay, how do we kind of narrow down certain things and almost outsource or partner with other companies to be able to offer these to these kids? But the nonprofit for me, it's been so important because I grew up poor. My sister, my mom and my mom raised us, and she did an absolutely amazing job with what she had. And, I actually didn't really even know about technology, I think, until I was probably 15. I didn't have access to it. I really, not a lot of us did back in the day compared to how it is now, but I think more so there weren't things like classes or courses. I actually asked my dad, I'm like, how'd you even want to get into this back in the day? It is so dry of a topic sometimes. Like, how did you, of all people, want to do something like this? And, he had that curious kind of mindset, and he liked to build things, and he was really good with electronics. And so it just kind of, scaled into what it is today. But I think it's so important to start kids at the youngest of ages with awareness, right? We talk about this, and most kids in elementary school today, because I go and I'll read my book at different elementary schools. I go to, different elementary schools to read my book. And there's a lot of times where I say, hey, raise your hand if you want to be a doctor, raise your hand if you want to be a firefighter, and we kind of go through it. And I'm like, raise your hand if you want to be in cybersecurity. And no kid does. And I'm like, okay, well, why is that? And they're like, we don't know what that is. And I'm like, all right. And that's, part of the problem is awareness and education around it. And I think even aside from just education, we don't do a good enough job right now, which is why I started this, because there was a lack of it in the market, for making it engaging and fun for kids. We do it for high schoolers and sometimes middle school, but it's still more like a PowerPoint, and it's not engaging and immersive. So my thought was I wanted to do that. A little background for that. My 12-year-old son has ADHD. So most of my entire life as a mom has been trying to get him to care about any of the things. And so I'm like, okay, how do I make this engaging and fun? And so that's kind of what we're building right now. And, I'm a firm believer that if you're in the position to be able to give back in this industry, and you've made it, it is kind of all of our duty to do so. And so my focus was kids who, would otherwise, these are a lot of kids we work with, some of them have never even seen or heard of a computer before. They don't know about the internet. There's no access to things that they need, right? So everything we do is mostly online these days, right? And that means that these kids will grow up without the awareness of how to access things that can help them live fulfilling lives. So my goal is to get that into the minds and the hands of little ones everywhere, so that way they can grow up and this becomes a norm for them, right? It's not something that they have to kind of say, oh, maybe I want to go down this path because I heard about it one time from my dad, right? It's like, no, they teach this in school. I know about this. This is now, you have doctors, you have lawyers, you have firefighters, and you have cybersecurity people now. So that's kind of our goal there. And it's been amazing. We have a fantastic team that's brought it all together.
That's an incredible initiative, and it sounds really, really incredible. So maybe can you share with us where can people go and check it out? And if there's any way for anyone to get involved, how would they do that?
Yeah, so everything is done through our website. So it's www.teachkidstech.net. And so that's where you'll find everything from donations. We have our storefront where we have a lot of cool t-shirts and swag that we do all the time. We're always refreshing that. We have links to other books, so a lot of other kids' books for parents to check out. We'll have a lot of stuff coming out with our newsletters and blogs, and then areas for volunteering and stuff like that. So every single thing possible is on that website. So teachkidstech.net.
That's incredible. So now, Amber, I want to talk a lot more about the kids education part and about the kids book that you have and about your creativity, your creative resources that you have and how that came about. But before we do that, I want to introduce you to a segment called Rapid Fire. And so in Rapid Fire, with Rapid Fire, it works like this. I'm going to throw you with a bunch of questions, and then you have under 10 seconds to answer your favorite things to these questions.
Ooh, okay, yeah, perfect.
Yeah. All right.
Are you ready? I'm ready.
Okay, perfect. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1. So if you are working on a hardcore day in your project or on one of your initiatives, what is your favorite drink and snack?
Definitely an iced chai. And snack, I don't know, maybe Oreos.
Nice. I like it. Are you a night owl or morning person?
Oh, more of a night owl. I come alive at like 3 p.m. It's the shining hour for me. 3 p.m. on, I'm great.
Preference, remote working or in the office or both?
Remote. Always. Always remote.
Nice. So more security specific. Now you have worked in many different roles. What is your favorite topic or area in security?
Oh, I would say data loss prevention because it's where I've spent most of my time.
Oh, nice. I like that one. Didn't expect it. Very nice.
Yeah.
What is currently your favorite AI tool to use?
Oh my gosh. ChatGPT. I'm telling you, we have t-shirts on our website that says, it's actually Chat TKT. So we have a little spin-off of it. But that is absolutely my go-to. I think I use it 9,000 times a day. So
amazing. So, okay, final one here. Final one. This might be a longer answer for you, but what would your dream day or dream project look like in security if you could do anything?
I think it's getting kids to understand. So showing kids a different side of security other than coding and robotics and all that stuff. I think being able to have, and I can't give away too many details because we still are coming up. So I would say definitely doing some type of pop-up event or like family style event where parents and kids can come and learn about cyber together. And that's my dream, is to be able to do that all the time. So
that's exciting. That's super exciting. I feel like you have the coolest initiatives. Like you, even I feel like I'm getting to know the way you think, and even from like the SOC Manager role with the games through it's like a theme that's coming through here that you like to have fun and you learn and educate in fun ways. I love that.
I do. That's the best way to do it.
I love it. Okay, so let's get back to some of the exciting things that you're doing. So you are also a best-selling author. Can you tell us about this?
That was accidentally. So then because of my network, right? So I created a cybersecurity kids book called The Little Cyber Engineer. And I originally did that because my son, like I said, has ADHD and had a really hard time understanding what I did. And so a lot of my time as a mom has been using my artistic capabilities. He's also very artistic. So pictures is how he learns best. So I started drawing out everything and I was like, you know what, maybe I'll make a little story. And so it is me and my son in that book. People always ask that question that you know, obviously you'll see the resemblance, but, yeah, so it goes through and it's really, people ask all the time what the age range is and it's anyone, right? So I have folks who have, I've been so blessed to have so much success with that book. It's actually what led me to start the nonprofit was because I had all of this money from selling this book that I was not planning on. I'm like, how do I put this to good use? Like, how do I give back with this? And so that's where that came from. But long story short, you know, the reviews have been great. My book has been sold in I think every country on the planet except for 2 from what I've been told by Amazon. But yeah, it's been amazing to see people all over the world learning different concepts at different ages. People, you know, get it for their spouse or their families to understand or their kids or, you know, whatever. And it's been really rewarding. So very lucky with the success of that book. And there's definitely more books coming out. So
congratulations. That's amazing. That really is. It's amazing. I'm truly inspired. So with that, I mean, how do you do it, right? How do you balance everything? Nonprofit, full-time job, being a best-selling author, you do all these many things. How does it work?
Adderall. No, I'm just kidding. Well, kind of. So I have ADHD as well. I probably should have said that too, which means that I am always doing a million things because if I'm not, I feel like I'm going stir crazy. So, and it's weird because a lot of the times people are like, well, how do you know, you've got a book and you've got this and you've got your job and you've got TikToks. And it's like, it really all boils down to one thing for me. It's not separate things. It's just creativity. And it's the way that I learned. So I could probably write a book on how to not write a book because you know, I learned things somehow the hard way. It feels like I spent a long time in this industry and I was at first really afraid to kind of like raise my hand and look like the imposter because I felt like I wasn't good enough to be in these roles anyways. And I got kind of lucky, quote unquote. And so I didn't ask all the questions I should have. And I started, you know, trying to research different topics and different things on my own because I didn't have the same degree. I didn't go to the same school or the same classes to learn about these things. And it was just kind of on the job training. And so I was like, how do I make this like, I have this way to say, like, if I can dumb things down for me to know, then I can get anybody to know. And so that's a lot of what I do now is try to think of creative ways to teach the same concepts that we tend to overcomplicate in this industry to any age group, right? So one of my interview questions that I would always ask people when I was a SOC manager was explain the internet to me as if I'm a 5-year-old. And it was so funny how many people were like, well, you know, there's this thing called the intranet, if it were. And I'm like, no, I'm 5. I don't know what that means. You know what I mean? I'm like, dumb it down more. Because if we really understand a concept that is core, then we can teach anything about it, right? Like you have to have some kind of foundational knowledge. And so I think that's so important. And after, you know, doing that for a few years, I'm like, okay, now I'm going to really do this for kids. Instead of just asking how you would teach it to kids, I'm going to ask myself how I would teach it to kids and then go do that. So yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah, that's really great. And that's an important concept to even understand is that if you understand something thoroughly, you can really explain it so well as like to a 5-year-old to a 20-year-old, you know, you can change the narrative of how you explain the topic, but you would explain it no problem because you understand it really well. And I think that's also what the content creator journey enables, right? At least that is what I found for myself is that it has helped me to understand so many more topics super well because in order to explain it to someone else, I have to really, truly, thoroughly understand it. And so can you share a little bit? Because I mean, you make phenomenal videos. I always look at your, your tech.
As do you, by the way.
Thank you. But so I always look at your the explanatory videos that you make specifically around like what is SD-WAN and what is denial of service, you know, those types of videos. And you explain it thoroughly and really well. So, I mean, how has that journey gone for you? And what kind of personal growth and career growth have you seen through that and through really building your community?
So I would say the one thing that came from that isn't really an expected answer that people ask me this all the time. And I tell them it actually gave me a lot more self-confidence because let's be real, that first time I made that video, I think it was like, you know, what is a firewall or something. And I remember being like, my whole network is full of industry experts. They're going to be like, why are you making videos? Who cares? We all know what firewalls are, right? But then I started thinking, like, my mom has been in tech forever as well. And she is one of the most amazing women. And I don't just say that because she's my mom. She really is. She's like classy all around. She never lets anybody feel excluded. And her biggest thing to me was never be the a-hole, right? That uses acronyms and assumes everybody knows, because then there's those people in the room that go, oh my God, I feel like I don't know, and I'm inferior, and I'm like, so my whole thing was I wanted to not only explain these acronyms, not only explain the terms, but learn how I learn, right? So I feel like a lot of us, sometimes I feel like I'm just an elementary schooler still at heart, because I learn through pictures and simplification of things easiest, right? Like I can learn complex subjects, but I need to know the foundation first. So I do a lot of analogies. That's one of my claim to fames there, is because I think, if I can explain this in a way that relates to the real world, then people will catch on and go, oh, okay, that makes sense now. I understand how this works. So for me, I started by going through and thinking of not even topics, but just different words, right? Like different terms, like firewall, CASB was one at the time. What's the difference between, a router and a switch and things like that. And I started doing all these topics where it's like, yeah, it's more of things that people assume, like, oh yeah, we all just know, right? But it's like, do we really though, if we break it down? So I took time to do that. And I remember how nervous I was. Like I had written this whole post for LinkedIn, and I was like, oh, do I press submit? Do I not? Like I'm probably gonna get a lot of haters for this, and I'll probably lose a lot of followers. And I didn't. And it was such a confidence booster for me, because especially coming from, years and years of feeling like an imposter, it was like I reached a community that I didn't know existed, right? I was reaching a community that was like me, that felt like they were also imposters, that felt like they were afraid to raise their hand or they weren't good enough to be in the industry. And it was just so rewarding and uplifting. Like I love how many, like I had a lot of single moms reach out to me and say like, hey, I've been watching your stuff. Like I want to get out of being a stay-at-home mom and I want to have a career here. It seems like you love your life and you get to spend time with your son. Like, how can I do this? Right. And I'm like, I love this. This is so great, because we're creating this community of like inclusivity in different ways than what most people would think. And so it's awesome. It's been I know I keep saying this, but it has been rewarding, like all the way through.
Yeah, I resonate with that feeling so much. And
Yeah.
I can even I can hear your passion with this, and I can see it. It's really phenomenal. And I resonate with that. It's like when you truly do something because you have a story to share, not because you're trying to build something for any odd reason, whatever, everyone do their own thing, but you have a story to share. You were inspired by a certain thing in your life and in your journey, and now you want to help others to make it easier for them. Like it's an absolute incredible thing, and it's a rewarding thing when someone then communicates back to you that this has helped me in whichever way. It's definitely incredible. But then I also just want to ask you, so you talk a lot about the fact that you had this massive struggle with imposter syndrome, and then, eventually getting to post your first post on LinkedIn, which, by the way, I think is the bravest thing to do, especially for someone who has a network there, because I remember when I started, I explicitly went to Instagram to start because I was not brave enough to go to LinkedIn. So I was like, everyone there knows me, it's my network. So that's incredible, and kudos to you,
right?
because that's super brave. I couldn't.
Thank you.
But yeah, so how did you deal with that, and how have you been working through the imposter syndrome feeling?
Thank you. That's like one of the best questions. And this actually came up in conversation last week where I, was talking with a girlfriend of mine who's also in the industry. And I was like, it's so crazy to me how much onus we put on trying to be like this, cookie cutter version of what we think this industry wants. And I realize all of my success has been because I've stood out, right? Like my parents are very much so the opposite of me. They like to, keep their nose to the grind, don't make waves, don't draw attention, things like. My mom told me when she first saw one of my TikToks, she gave me a hug, and she lovingly, of course, said, okay, go ahead and stop making TikToks now. You know what I mean? Because it was like, because from, her generation, it was very much so like, you don't break out from the norm. And for me, especially that we need so many more resources and like folks in this industry to come into this, right? It's always going to be new generations and next generations, and they're always going to do things differently. And you better believe that the bad actors, they're also going to be doing those same things, right? So it's about being able to keep up with the times and not necessarily holding the same standards or ways that we've done things forever. And so I don't know. I think now I'm like an advocate for being like loud and disruptive, right? Because I've spent so long as an imposter or feeling like an imposter that I was like, why did I go through that much stress and take that much on? And I was so worried about what people would think about me. And now it's funny, Meryl, who was she was one of the co-hosts of the Cyber Queens podcast. When I first met her was like, own your mess, because you'll find your community will find you. So instead of trying to fit into this community that you think like you need to mold yourself into, be who you are, and the right people will find you and navigate towards you. And I found my, niche, and it's been amazing. So I would say to anybody, I'll be out there shouting from the rooftops, like, hey, I'm here. I'm doing this job. I've been doing it for 15 years successfully. I don't have a degree. I don't have certificates. You know what I mean? Like, I've done a bunch of things that are out of the norm, like creating, astrological, cybersecurity focused TikToks, but it gets people to look into the industry, to look into what we're doing, to bring awareness. And I don't think that would have happened if I would have done this through the status quo. So I would say, just like Meryl would always say, just own your mess, just be who you are unapologetically.
I love that. I love that. And I think it's so powerful when someone now I will use the term own their mess, because I'm always like, find who you are, find your voice, your story, because through your story, it will be so authentic and you will feel a certain type of way. So if you, like you're saying, if you own your mess, your people will find you. I mean, I remember even when I started on this journey, I'm a super quiet introvert person, right? I mean, you and I spoke about how interesting this is even for me to have different types of conversations, because I'm like a quiet, non-speaking person. And it was just one inspiration that got me to do that first Instagram post. And from there, it changed everything, because I saw that people were listening, and they were listening to me. And it was like, I never wanted then to be the same as even another creator. I feel like each creator is unique. They have their own unique story, and each, as a collective, we now inspire so many people to look at the industry and look at it as an option, because that was essentially my first outcome here, was create more awareness for people to consider this as an option, because people aren't considering it as an option. That was my entire starting point. And now it's so different. So I resonate with that so much. And it genuinely is, it's so inspirational to me. And now I'm gonna take this and start to be brave and maybe post on LinkedIn. I don't know.
You should, because that's how for the folks that don't know the backstory, that's how I found you, was through your videos on Instagram. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is brilliant. I love what she's doing. I need to be connected with her. I'm so humbled that you reached out for the podcast, because I was like, are you kidding me? That'd be amazing. I would love to be on. So yeah, no, it's been great. And I love that you're doing what you do. Your videos are so different than all the other content creators that I've run into as well. And I think it's super important. You give so much detail in your videos, and you give resources on how to do things. It's not just awareness. It's actually step-by-step kind of instructions on here's what to do, here's what to look for, go research this, go get this book, go do this. It's very helpful. So thank you for what you do too.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So now I have a philosophical question for you as we lead towards the end. So if you think of you, your platform, who you are as a person, and the people who are looking at you or towards you right now, what would you want to be known for, or what do you want people to think when they think about you and think about your platform?
I would say to help others. That's my whole thing, right? Every single thing I do is with the mindset of being able to give back. So and when I say give back, I don't necessarily just mean through charitable initiatives or things like that. I do mean giving back to the community, right? Because it takes a village to get where we are. I had a village, you had a village, right? So be that village for other people. And I would say just help folks where you can. And for me, that's kind of my whole brand, right? Is how do you take what you have and help make the world better because of it, right? So in this industry specifically, I would say, and unapologetically, by the way, unapologetically be who you are, like never, like be superficial, right? Like always be your most authentic self. Even if you show up as a total mess, you're still showing up as you. And that's what people need, because you never know. There might be people out there right now that are looking at you thinking, oh my gosh, I relate so much to her because she's kind of all over the place like me. And that means that like, if she can do this, I can do this. And so we just need more of that. If there was any takeaway, if you had to sum up one word, it would be helpfulness. Like just be of help and service to others. Because it goes a long way. Yeah. Amazing.
I'm inspired. Thank you. So where can people find you?
Yeah, LinkedIn, Instagram, and all of us teach kids tech. So we all have everything there. So if you go to the website, there's actually a link to all of our individual LinkedIns as well. So Amber DeVilbiss. Or on Instagram, I think it's Engineer Amber. So.
All right, yeah, but we will have everything linked down below. So that's also totally fine. We'll have everything linked in the description and in the caption detail box. Amber, thank you so much for joining me. Yes. I'm honestly I'm humbled and I'm inspired and I'm so
likewise.
Happy now.
Thank you.
I'm so happy to have chatted to you. I feel like
Me too.
This has been incredibly valuable to everyone. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. And I'm looking forward to the day that you and I make one of our cool collaboration TikToks. So
absolutely.
Stay tuned for that one. Thanks for having me on. It's been a blessing.
This is Cybersecurity Uncomplicated, and I'm your host, Cyber Queen.